thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to show you how to make sourdough bread from scratch. I know it's been a popular activity during quarantine, but I wanted to break down some of the science behind it. So first we think about how do flour and water combine to make something like bread? Well, they don't without yeast. Today we produce yeast commercially, but I thought it might be fun to try to make our own in the same way that our ancestors did. Something that's important to understand is that yeast breaks down the starches in flour into simple sugars to use as an energy source. As it does this, it produces ethanol and carbon dioxide. This is what produces some of the characteristic bubbles and scent, which smells faintly of a brewery. As it does so, it decreases the pH in our starter. And this is going to decrease competition with other microorganisms who aren't able to live in such an environment. Lactic acid bacteria can survive in low pH and coincidentally also enjoy the starch from flour as a food source. Therefore, the two are able to live symbiotically in the starter mixture. As the lactic acid bacteria breaks down the starch, it produces acetic acid and lactic acid as byproducts. The byproducts from the yeast and the lactic acid bacteria in combination serve to create a very acidic environment, which contributes to the distinctive sour flavor of sourdough bread. That, along with its ability to help the bread rise, makes this a key ingredient in our bread. So, how do we make our starter from scratch? Well, we'll start off with 60 grams of flour, which is approximately half a cup, and 60 grams of water, which is approximately a quarter cup. We'll combine them in a container and mix them together. It'll start off looking like this. Remember, this is just a mixture of flour and water before it's attracted any yeast. We want to cover it and then set it aside in a warm environment between 70 to 80 degrees. We'll leave it for a few days and come back to check and see if any bubbles have formed. If they have, we know the yeast has started to colonize and it's time to feed it. To do so, we'll remove half of the mixture and add another 60 grams of flour and 60 grams of water. We'll do this every day for a week, and fingers crossed, it will have doubled in size by the end. Once our mixture has doubled in size, we know that the starter is stable and ready to be used in making our sourdough bread. Now that we've made our starter culture, it's time to make our sourdough bread. We'll start off with 3 cups of flour. To that, we'll add 1 1/4 cup of water, 3/4 cup of our starter culture, which we did a great job with, by the way, and 1 1/4 teaspoon of salt. We want to mix all of this thoroughly to combine the ingredients. Look at the bubbling! Smells great, just like sourdough bread. Once we've combined all of these ingredients thoroughly, we want to leave it sitting for approximately 15 minutes so that the gluten can form. After about 15 minutes, you're ready to knead your dough. You want to lightly flour your workspace and then dump out your mixture. You'll notice it's still a little bit lumpy, and a big part of this kneading process is going to be creating a smoother consistency for our bread. You want to knead the dough away from you and then pull it back in. We'll do this for about, like I said, 8 to 10 minutes to really smooth it out before we let it rise. As you're kneading, if the dough gets too sticky for you and is getting stuck all over your hands, definitely feel free to grab a little more flour, lightly dust the top, dust your hands off. It's also helpful to have a bench scraper that can get it up off of your work surface and back together as you keep kneading. Once you've kneaded your dough into a smoother consistency and shaped it into a ball, you'll want to get a lightly oiled bowl. You'll see we've used olive oil. And place it in the bowl and cover with a towel for approximately 3 hours while your dough rests. So after 3 hours, the dough has risen a ton. I don't know if you remember what it looked like before, but it's gotten much bigger. So now we're gonna take it out of the bowl and we're gonna stretch it in order to help it be successful. A light dusting. Now we're gonna go north. And then south. No, east. Now west. And now south. And then that consolidates it back together. And then we put it back in the bowl. Now we're gonna cover it back up with a towel and let it rest for another 2 hours. So now I have my dough that's rested for 2 more hours. And I don't want a lot of flour, but I'm gonna lightly flour my hands. And this process is called shaping. And so we're gonna just sort of tuck it under in an effort to create a nice smooth shape, going around the dough. It's much easier to work with now than it was before after its second rest. And then we're just gonna take it in a circle. We're gonna shape it in this way, sort of circular motion. To create a nice compact ball, you'll really see it start to tighten up. And then I'm gonna use this to put it on our parchment paper. So now I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna preheat the oven with the Dutch oven in it to get even heating throughout the ceramic. And we're going to set it at 450 while the dough continues to rest a bit more before we put it in to bake. Now we're going to score the bread. We've rubbed some flour on the top of it here. We'll just be setting it into the oven like this. So I'm gonna go ahead and make sort of an X pattern on the top. And that'll bake nicely. Oh, it's hot. Nice and crusty. I can taste the lactic acid bacteria in yeast.